Welcome to Because the Beatles, the podcast about the Beatles, everything about the Beatles 24/8. I'm Allison.
And I'm Erika. And before we start, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast, or stream us on Spotify. And if you're enjoying BC the Beatles, feel free to leave us a preferably 5-star review so other Beatlemaniacs can find us.
Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter/X, and now TikTok too. We'll be posting videos, photos, and more from this episode and beyond. And remember, you can always email us at bcthebeatles@gmail.com.
This week, we're continuing our mini-series of episodes on Let It Be with a roundtable discussion with some of our favorite Beatles podcasters. A few days after the film was released on Disney+, our friends at Blotto Beatles, Becker, RB, Tommy, and Scotty C., convened a group for a supersized discussion about the film. Unfortunately, Allison wasn't able to make it. She was sorely missed, but I was available that night. And the Blottos and I were joined by Ethan Alexanian of the Fans on the Run podcast. We also had Sam Wiles from the UK, who hosts 2 Paul McCartney-centric shows, All or Nothing, and his spin-off YouTube series, Macca in Your Attic. We also had Jonathan Pretis, one half of the fantastic Ranking the Beatles podcast. His other half, Julia, was also missed during the discussion. And of course, you know the Blottos from our endless retelling of our own Blotto experience. They crack open a drink or 4 or 5 and also discuss and rank the Beatles catalog. We'll add links to all their shows in the show notes. If you like what you hear, head on over and check out more of their content. But for now, enjoy our discussion on Let It Be.
Hey, everybody. We want to welcome you to a really special week in Beatles podcasting and in Beatles fandom. This is Tommy from the Blotto Beatles podcast. I'm here with the rest of the Blottos and a cavalcade, an absolute all-star lineup of Beatles podcasters, because this week we got the re-released, remastered Let It Be film. For the first time in decades, an official release of the Let It Be film. And I'm going to be honest, we just couldn't help ourselves. We threw out a couple emails to some of our best pod pals, and we wanted to talk about this movie. So we're going to go around the horn here. We're going to make sure everyone's introduced. Once again, I'm Tommy. I'm from Blotto Beatles. That's a show where a couple friends have a couple drinks and come together to discuss and rank a single Beatles song every episode. I'm here with some good friends from Blotto Beatles. I'm going to ask them to say, hey. I got my co-host Becker with me.
Hey. I'm excited to chat.
Hey. Yes, man. We have our executive producer, Scotty C., with us tonight.
I'm here.
And then we got our musical supervisor, the one, the only RB. We all know that B always stands for Beatles. What's up, RB?
Present
And accounted for. We're here with some great friends. First, you know him, you love him. He comes from America's Hat. It's Ethan Alexanian, host of the Fans on the Run podcast. Ethan, what's Fans on the Run about?
Haha, it certainly is.
Excellent. Concise and sensical as always, Ethan. Thank you.
It's the podcast made by, for, and about Beatles fans. It's the only podcast hosted by Ethan Alexanian.
That is correct, which is what makes it very special.
Exclusive.
We're also here tonight with the one, the only 50%, some would say the lesser half, I say the equal half of the Ranking the Beatles podcast. We got Jonathan Pretis with us tonight. How are you, Jonathan?
Yo, I'm good. How are you guys?
We're doing all right, man. And what is, for those who don't know, if you don't know by now, what is Ranking the Beatles?
Ranking the Beatles is a foolhardy effort that I undertake with my wife, in which I have a list of the entire Beatles catalog. Every episode, we discuss the next song in a ranking that I've made of least favorite to most favorite, because I love them all. So yeah, it's a fool's errand that's been going on for a long time and has a lot longer to go.
And Jonathan, some would say that you came up with the idea of ranking Beatles podcasts. I would say they're wrong.
Somewhat.
Personally. But, hey, we are also joined tonight.
It was just good timing. Sorry.
By the one, the only, Miss Erika White from BC the Beatles. Erika, great to see you again.
So good to be here.
And tell the listening audience, I don't know how they wouldn't know at this point in time, what is BC the Beatles?
BC the Beatles is me and my co-host Allison. We want to be your best Beatles girlfriends. We talk about the Beatles, everything about the Beatles 24/8, as we say.
Well, welcome. It's great to have you here. And
this
finally,
is the second roundtable where we've only had 50% of BC the Beatles. So in my mind, I've never seen Allison and Erika recently in the same place. So I don't know that there's two people on this pod anymore. I think
that's true. Only one was at Beatles Fest when we were there. Only one was on the last call. Interesting.
That is true. But we were both at the Let It Be screening.
Oh.
I did see two of you when you came on a Blotto Beatles episode, but that may have just been because of the amount of drinks. The number
that
of
was
drinks
double
I had.
vision.
Yeah, I think so. Finally, friends.
At a screen.
Here we go.
Seeing double 4 crusties.
There, you just heard him from across the pond, phoning in right now. 5 hours later than we are. We're at 8:22 EST right now. So what's that like? That's like 3:30 in the morning, 3:40 in the morning, right? If my math is right. We got Sam Wiles from the Paul or Nothing podcast. Sam,
your math is not right.
No, it's right. That's it, right? It's like a 7 hour, 27-minute difference. If you convert from Fahrenheit to Celsius, you have to do a different formula.
$1 to pounds.
Yeah, exactly. That you get
$1 million o'clock over there.
Sam, tell us a little bit about your podcast. What is Paul or Nothing?
Great to be here. Paul or Nothing. Well, also, I'm always phoning it in. No matter where I am, I'm always phoning in. Paul or Nothing is, like Ethan's show, it's basically my version of a Paul McCartney podcast. I was too afraid to tackle the Beatles like all of you lot, so I thought I'd do Paul's solo career. It's the place to get all of your Paul all of the time, as I always say.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sam, for being here. Thank you, everyone, for being here, for accepting the invite. We're hoping this episode is going to get up on multiple feeds from these different podcasts. So hopefully if you're being introduced to someone new, you'll go out and check them out.
We're allowed to do that?
Yes, we're going to give you the original audio. We'll give it to you lossless, Neil Young style.
Everyone.
I'm gonna. I can listen to it on the bus on my Pono.
Yeah, that's right. It fits wonderfully into another bag. I do want to get right into the Let It Be movie, but I have to make a special note because this has been a big week in Beatles history, first of all. That's what we're really going to talk about. But this has been maybe an even bigger week in Beatles podcasting history, my friends. Some of our friends here took part in some very, very important things this weekend. I can think of two right off the top of my head. And if I were to rank them, I would say the second most important is the fact that our dear friends, BC the Beatles, had MLH himself on their podcast this week, Michael Lindsay Hogg, the director of the Let It Be movie. Unreal, yes, Erika. How did that come to be?
We know somebody at Apple who is very kind to us, who's a friend of ours, and we ask a lot of unreasonable things, and every once in a while they say yes. And in this case, Michael Lindsay Hogg was available. We got 20 minutes with him. It was a great 20 minutes. I was determined. I wanted to know two things. I wanted to know more about that Tripoli idea, and I needed to know more about the Two of Us movie. I got both of my questions answered. Plus, we talked a little bit about Let It Be, and it was lovely.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if you haven't heard it yet, you should check out that most recent episode of BC the Beatles. I think for us, it just dropped today. It'll still be out there for you. I did say it. That I think was the second most important thing that happened in Beatles podcasting this week. I'm going to say the most important thing. None other than our very own Ethan Alexanian was a guest on our very own Jonathan Predis's Ranking the Beatles podcast. Oh my goodness. Two forces of nature, three forces of nature if you include Julia, which you absolutely should, crashing together. I can't believe the world stands as it did before this.
The cream rises to the top.
The cream will rise to the top, and sometimes stars collide, and you get a whole new force in the universe, and that's what we have done. It's a red letter day.
I mean, I want for the record, Blotto Beatles had Ethan on like 2 years ago, so I'm not sure who's keeping score between the pods.
I just started. My DMs are open. I will gladly go on anyone's show.
Ethan, don't be so desperate, man.
Sorry.
Cool.
No, I hate Beatles
thirsty.
podcasts.
Cream of the crop.
Maybe in between those two things, like somewhere in the middle of those two sentiments. Be good. I don't want to coach you too much.
You're breaking my balls.
Hey, everybody, I do think it's time. I really am looking forward to having more of a discussion than sitting in this host chair, but I do want to just maybe go around the horn. And Sam, let's start with you. Like, you've watched the Let It Be movie?
Yeah, I get a quick flip before it came on. Yeah. I skimmed it over.
And initial reactions at having, seen this for the first time, restored and remastered. What initial thought?
For the longest time, one of my glib jokes has been, Let It Be is my favorite of the original Beatles movies. It's just a nice contrarian thing to say to start conversation on a podcast. And that opinion is well and truly dead now, I think. This whole experience to me was a bit like going back to like your old town after you've like moved away for a while and you come back and it's not as good as you remember. Unfortunately, with hindsight, with the Peter Jackson trilogy that we've had, with the progression of how much we've learned, context surrounding it, yada yada yada, rare. It just doesn't compare anymore. It feels very irrelevant. It feels very thrown together by comparison. Knowing what we know, knowing the gaps that are in this 90-minute film, it was shockingly without narrative for me. It was shockingly aimless. It was a series of random clips thrown together with a few music videos, and then the rooftop concert roll credits. I found it to be jarringly weird and strange. And a couple of days ago in preparation for this, I went back to Get Back, and that was such a wonderful experience. And I know it's moderate propaganda from Apple to a certain degree. I know it's a little bit of like whitewashing. That's fine. That really is fine. And, we've had Ringo come out, there's no joy in the Let It Be. That is kind of true, maybe for the first kind of 20 minutes, but there is a lot of joy to be found in this movie. There are still those iconic clips, and you can't take away from that. But overall, let the
record show that Sam has used one of his 4 allotted impressions already.
Yeah,
so
we allowed
that.
Wait, that wasn't actually Ringo?
You're throwing me off, Ethan. Don't, please. My elevator pitch, my one line for this, it felt a bit like a student film, especially when compared to like Peter Jackson's work. And as someone who fumbled his way very poorly through a film degree here in the UK and had to sit through dozens of student films, it was like a Vietnam flashback for me. It really was.
Wow,
Erika,
what a way to kick this off.
I know, what a way to open, right? We might edit and post. We're going to put you third instead of first when we reassemble this. No, but Erika, what are your thoughts? I mean, you did talk to Michael Lindsay Hogg, and I don't know
I did not. I had a very different reaction, I think, to Let It Be. I never liked this period before Get Back, before everything. And I think a lot of it was thanks to the movie Let It Be, or at least the grainy tape of 9, bits and pieces that I saw over time. I'm really not sure I ever saw the entire thing all the way through before this week. And I kind of shied away from the entire period between that, like Alan Klein and, all of the strife, kind of stayed away from it. And I didn't think it was it wasn't nearly as depressing as I thought it would be. In fact, I thought it was kind of fun. I think a lot of that, though, now is informed by Get Back. I'm filling in the blanks with Get Back. And so it's not as aimless as I can imagine it would be just seeing it without the benefit of the 8 hours of background that Peter Jackson provided. But I quite enjoyed it. I really liked the rooftop concert. I never really thought about just how many different angles we have, how many different camera angles we have, how many different people we were able to see. I think I spent a lot more time watching the audience than I actually watched the Beatles. And I just thought that part of it was fascinating. So I thought it was really fun. And I also really enjoyed talking to Michael Lindsay Hogg. So that doesn't hurt.
Did you talk to Michael before you had watched Let It Be?
No, the day after.
Gotcha. Nice.
How about you, RB? I don't even know if you've seen this full film before. Like, what were your thoughts?
I had seen, like, it was probably some like digital transfer of a terrible source. You know what I mean? Like, it was something on archive.org. I think I originally saw it on. So Wait, are
you making archive.org money right now? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
You're just going to drop?
You keep bringing it up. You're always wearing their t-shirt.
That's right.
Name drop there.
But yeah, having seen Get Back, I feel like that is that provided so much context to whenever I had watched that the first time. I was kind of surprised as I rewatched it, like that there are people that are prominently in Get Back that are almost not in this movie. Like Glyn Johns, I don't think he's in
at all.
Let It Be at all.
Nope.
Billy Preston just like appears at the organ at one moment, and you're like, wait a minute, there's a whole, like, that's one of my favorite parts of Get Back is when Billy Preston enters and like the whole thing, like magically, like everything is feeling better, and like they got none of that is in there. You know, Mal makes a couple appearances in it, you know, George Martin as well, but like I was surprised that those folks were barely in it. I liked that they opened the movie with the interview to kind of set it up, because it gave Michael Lindsay Hogg a chance to kind of it gave the two directors like a little bit of back and forth, which was fun to see. And you got kind of like Michael Lindsay Hogg explaining that, like, you know, Let It Be didn't get a fair shake initially, and like he's happy that it's out in the world again to be consumed and rejudged, I guess, or celebrated. But yeah, I think the dark kind of gloomy piece of this, I don't think that Let It Be as a movie is a sad, depressing story. It feels like a some weird snippets of what I know was available through Get Back, but
and I almost feel like when the Beatles are talking about it and having that memory, it's probably because like they watched more cuts than we've seen, right? Like we know that it's gone through a bunch of cuts, and like, are they colored by the fact that they watched it more times and more footage was taken out? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut into. No. Interest.
I think there was also some strange choices that made it maybe feel sadder than it actually is. Like opening up with like that Paul playing a exploratory classical minor piano thing is a weird way to start a Beatles movie.
Yeah,
it's just like a single lonely drumhead.
Yeah,
being brought out center stage. You know, like spotlight, interior, Twickenham.
Yeah,
a lonely drumhead.
2,000 drumheads.
Yeah,
torchlit.
Yeah, torchlit by Arabs. Right? Isn't that Michael Lindsay Hogg's whole thing? I want to go.
Oh, they dropped the Arabs line in that intro.
In the intro interview, they do.
2,000 people. 2,000
in a
people.
desert. Yeah.
Imagine if this movie really ended that way, though, the way that he cut it, and then imagine we jump from Apple and then we jump to the desert all of a sudden, like with 2,000 torchlit Arabs. Like, what if that was the flow of this
there's
film?
no outlets out there. Like, we can't plug in an amp.
I gotta say though, not to plug my podcast at all, but if you listen to my interview with Michael Lindsay Hogg, I asked him to explain that in more detail, and by the end of it, I was like, "Yeah, Tripoli, I want to do it. I want to go." He really sold it to me.
I was listening to that episode today, and he really does like lay it out, and you're like, "Yeah, I paid good money to watch this. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm in."
RB, I'm gonna hop in myself because I think I'm agreeing a lot with what you're saying, especially like the breakup of the band. Like, this isn't a breakup story. We color it with that because we know the story of the Beatles, right? Like we know that there is strife there. And I was amazed because I had seen this probably in the early 2000s for the first time on some like garbage YouTube link or something. And I was amazed at how much my own mind had filled in a story that is kind of non-existent in this movie. Like we don't see George leave the Beatles.
Yeah.
That spat is a really small portion of this movie. And if you don't know that story, it just kind of looks like two friends disagreeing for 30 seconds and then they totally move on. I like actually a bigger part where I'm like, wow, this guy might not like this guy is when Paul is talking to John about like what the band should do and how they should create movies. And John is sitting with his hand on his cheek like, can this guy just shut up, please? Like
that is one of the best scenes in the movie.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
I have that
as you said, RB, doesn't introduce Billy at all. He's just there. Like we don't even get the song Get Back until we're on the rooftop. Right? Like it is kind of this much more choppy thing there. Like I forget who was it said, where is the narrative here? I agree with that statement, but the flip side of that for me is I had filled in so much of that because I think I'd read so much about this time period with the Beatles, knowing the story, and was like, having seen this for the first time and no real Beatle, we didn't have the 8 hours of Get Back at the time, feeling in myself like, oh my God, this is the George Paul fight I had heard about for so long. This is the pivotal, like nearly breakup moment. And you watch it now objectively, you're that's not really there. So that was my big piece. Jonathan, what about you? What'd you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of going to piggyback a little bit off of what everybody's kind of said to some extent. I agree, RB, what you were saying about the way it starts with that classical piece, which I did a little digging on. It's called Adagio for Strings, and it is by Samuel Barber, and it is generally regarded as one of the saddest compositions of all time, which is a really weird way to start a documentary. Kind of like y'all.
We've been ranked the saddest Beatles podcast of all time, so I know what it feels like.
With a Wikipedia level knowledge,
yes, badge of honor.
Sadder every day. Yeah,
I'd seen it. I'd only really seen it on YouTube as well, and the 10th generation, crappy version. And I don't think I'd ever made it all the way through. I think the last time I tried to watch it, I'm pretty sure I fell asleep. Just because, and this was kind of a feeling I had during this version as well. It just jumps around so much. It's kind of hard to connect with what's happening at any given time. And maybe it's, maybe I'm not a cinephile. I don't appreciate the fly on the wall look as much as others do, or cinema concrete or whatever you want to call it. But it just kind of left me going like, well, wait, why are we moving again? Like everything's changing constantly. So that's a weird choice to make, but also I'm not a film buff, so maybe I just don't connect with that kind of filmmaking. But that aside, I think it looks fantastic. I almost think I like the way it looks better than Get Back, which at times can kind of err on the side of that AI weirdness. Maybe Paul has a sixth finger at some point. It just looks very computer generated. This still looked modern and fresh and clean, but looked like film. It looked good to me. It was aesthetically pleasing at all times. So I really enjoyed that. I thought it sounded good. I really think the darker vibe around it was really informed by the way we've seen it in the past physically, the way it's been viewed and the quality it's been viewed in. And then also it's almost impossible to, I think, separate it from what we already know of the story. And now it's even harder to separate it from what we know about Get Back and what we've seen in Get Back. There was a moment when the film ended, I was like, did Yoko have more than 10 seconds of cumulative screen time in this film?
No.
Because for all the talk about you can tell and Let It Be, she's breaking up the band. She's not in the movie hardly at all, which I found really, really interesting. You get way more time of Heather McCartney. which I thought was adorable. I thought those scenes are great.
But nothing of Linda. So where did she come from?
Nothing of Linda. Yeah. Well, I think
I read a quote that Michael Lindsay Hogg said that when he had the first screening of the documentary, that the notes back were less Yoko.
Interesting.
From like one of the first takes, that there was too much Yoko in it.
Yeah.
That was from,
That's two. It was worth it, though. It was worth it.
It was good. I think maybe the other place where kind of the down vibe comes from is, and I don't necessarily know that it is, maybe this isn't his vibe at all times, but Ringo just kind of seems exhausted and checked out and kind of either partied out or just not engaged for a lot of it. Like he's there doing the job.
Farted. Yeah, like
right. We get no fart.
Yeah,
we don't get a single Ringo fart. You barely even get that much dialogue from him after the Octopus's Garden part. I feel like he's very quiet.
I love that.
It's fantastic. But there are moments also of like the joy that we didn't think really existed in there. I never noticed there's a bit during the rooftop concert where I guess, and maybe it's during Dig a Pony or something. I can't remember. But George like drops to his knees in front of John and like does like a rock thing, and then John does kind of the thing with his guitar. And I was like, I've never noticed that. Like there's Mr. Dower like getting down and like having fun and like taking the piss out of it. Like there you go. So yeah, I did enjoy it. Even though it's not necessarily like my favorite film of theirs. I feel like it's the kind of thing I would put on in the background to have something on just to like do other stuff. More so than like sit down to intentionally watch it. Because like just the way it's put together doesn't super hold my interest in the way that I watch documentary. But I'm glad it's out. I think it should be available. I think it should be part of the canon, and I'm glad it's got its place back.
That's a really interesting take, because I'm just thinking to myself, if Get Back didn't exist, I think I would want to watch this more than other Beatles films. I'd want to watch it more than Hard Day's Night and more than Help.
We'd be so excited that this was coming out with that, what we just went through with Get Back,
Yeah.
But for the listener at home, I want everyone to know that both Jonathan and Ethan are almost like they're fighting each other's pompadours right now. Like I think they're seeing who can be closer to God right now. Like Jonathan's rocking a big pomp. Ethan had one going, but he's now primped up. So, anyways, sorry. RB just out pumped everything.
You got RB looks like
Erika's coming in.
There we go.
Going for the beehive.
Right. She
RB was rocking the what was Bill Murray's character in Kingpin?
Oh yeah. It was Bill. He's always Bill Murray.
He's always Bill Murray. I can't remember. Ernie McCracken.
Yes,
Ernie McCracken.
Scotty C, I'm wondering what your initial thoughts were. You've never seen this movie in its entirety, right?
No, same. I never got through it. Maybe saw clips on YouTube, crappy.
Yeah.
And watched Get Back, loved it, took it all in, got in that world, day by day, documentary style. It like clearly showed you what was happening and where it was coming from and where it was going. And I have to agree, like the edits on this, and like this is like a long trailer for Get Back.
Oh, that's an interesting take.
That's my take on it. I mean,
a 70-minute trailer for an 8-hour movie. That's pretty good.
That's what I felt about it. I enjoyed watching it. Like, I'm not going to try and compare the two, because the amount of footage and the amount of depth of documentary, sharing is so much better on Get Back. But there were I'm not sure, was the Long and Winding Road like cha-cha thing in Get Back? Because I love that.
That was really cool.
That was cool.
Like a cha-cha version of that. I was like, I want to hear this. I wanted you to finish that. And then Heather, her being everywhere and like sitting at John's feet while they're tooling around on the old songs, and that was really sweet. I know she was in the other one too, but like seemed like more here, or just the way it was edited. And I also agree, like they just kind of like it just like was started and then ended. Billy showed up, and like you just didn't really know what happened without the stories that we had learned from our like readings or chats with others. But yeah, the Octopus's Garden moment, that's one of my favorites too. And when George Martin comes in and he starts doing like the
yeah, he's singing the background vocals.
I love that so much. It's you guys are good at this. So I enjoyed it, but yeah, I feel like if you have Get Back at your fingers, like go there.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, Ethan Alexanian from the Fans on the Run podcast. We haven't heard from you yet tonight.
No, you haven't.
Yeah, what do you think about what were your takeaways from had you seen Let It Be before this in its entirety?
Okay, the first time I saw Let It Be, you know, my dad when I was first getting into the Beatles, my dad was quite a big proponent of internet piracy, and so he gave me a thumb drive with all of the Beatles movies, including Let It Be. So I had that, 6th generation VHS Laserdisc transfer that I remember watching at my cottage, and just, I liked it for what it was. I haven't seen it for quite a while. I mean, the only place I knew it was available was Pornhub, actually.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
That's a real
I only
thing.
did Sam posted about it the other day.
Yeah. That joke was mainly for Sam.
How long did it exist on Pornhub? Like that was a place you knew you could go and watch it because they weren't checking for copyright?
Hey, the shoe fits.
He's not wrong. Before Hamilton appeared on Disney Plus, Pornhub was the only place you could get it.
Wow.
Because no one was checking.
You guys have come up with some elaborate lies on why Pornhub is in your history. It's fine. I'm fine with that. Whatever. I'm watching. Oh, sorry. I'm watching Broadway. It's fine.
I
was watching Hamilton.
I will say,
hot. He belongs on Pornhub. What can I say?
Knock on the door. I'm watching Hamilton.
the person in this equation I'm most happy for is Michael Lindsay Hogg. Because Get Back, or not Get Back, that's the other one. Let It Be has been shit on so consistently over the last, 54 years, that it's just become like, oh, Let It Be is this, depressing, dark film. And, even during the press for this, Ringo was talking about the original Let It Be like it was like a snuff film or something. Like there's no joy.
Yeah.
I really liked it. It was not as dark as I remember it. And it's, if you're not in the mood to sit down for 8 hours to watch everything, Let It Be is for you. And it actually comes off feeling, I will say, it felt like a slightly more positive vibe than Get Back at points.
Whoa.
Like I felt, you don't see George quit the Beatles. You don't hear a secret teapot conversation.
Yeah.
It just feels like the Beatles. You don't see. What I'm really disappointed about is that they seemingly erased all mention of Magic Alex.
I thought that too.
So when I rank us on Letterboxd, it's only getting a 4 instead of a 5.
Anything without Magic Alex automatically loses 20% in your estimation.
Did I already say the Simpsons thing?
Yes. Oh, I think so. You talked about the Simpsons.
You're reading my mind. I haven't said that yet. No, it's like when all the nerds got mad when The Simpsons went to streaming because it was cropped in widescreen, like I think Get Back was. I think there should be an option on Disney Plus that you click it and you see the movie as a 9th generation VHS transfer, just to make us all feel a little bit more comfortable.
Let's turn the brightness all the way down on your TV.
And even in high resolution, unlike Get Back at some points, the Beatles don't look like plasticine. You get that nice film grain.
Yep. Well, thank you very much, sir. A fine take from start to finish. We appreciate that.
They call me Ethan. Concise, never misses the point. Alexander.
They call him First Take Ethan. That's what I've heard.
Yeah. He's the Jay-Z of Beatles podcasting.
Yeah, just gets
the Canadian Jay-Z.
Yeah. Hey,
I got it right the first try.
That's it. My co-host, my brother-in-arms, Becker, we haven't talked about this at all in the last 24 hours.
We always put a moratorium on this stuff.
When I texted at 6:30 in the morning yesterday and said, I finished watching that.
Tommy had watched it at 6:30. I had woke out of bed and Tommy was like, I watched it. I'm ready. I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Some of us are dedicated to the craft. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Putting in the hours. Impressive.
Had you, I don't even know the answer to this question. Had you seen the entire Let It Be before this?
I had not. I had trouble sort of watching it on all of the formats that were available. I didn't find it that interesting to get the little snippets. I didn't like the low quality of it. So I think like what people were talking about, I'd seen snippets of it and was not super excited about it. I'd actually read more about it, right? Like every Beatles book sort of covers this stuff. But for me, I felt like it was sort of like it's like an art house midnight movie that just happens to have the Beatles, you know? Like I love these sort of 60s fly on the wall documentaries. Like I love Don't Look Back, the Dylan doc. And so it has some of that aspect. I love I wish that I had seen this probably in a movie theater. I think that I would have felt better. Like it feels cinematic. What everyone was saying about the color and feeling on this, like the Beatles still felt like big in this movie where almost the way that they feel in Get Back is the color correction is almost like iPhone equality or something. Like it looks like they're your friends or something. I don't know. But this one, like they still feel like movie stars are far away from you. And I like that feeling of it. So I wish I had seen it in the theaters. I feel like Michael Lindsay Hogg had to make a decision where he was like, do I lead with music or do I lead with sort of the in chat or in fighting or in conversation? And maybe it wasn't up for him to know that like the Kardashian of the world was going to happen and that we wanted all of this interplay. And that's what we are desiring now as fans is like, oh, we want the flower pot conversation and all of this stuff. Like maybe that wasn't so important at the time. Maybe Michael Lindsay Hogg was sitting down and saying like, God damn, I have them doing songs and I have music and that's what's important about the Beatles. And that's what I'm going to put in this film, right? Like I have the infancy of songs. Now, clearly he blew it by not showing us Get Back from the start to finish, right? Like that's so glaringly missing. So maybe that blows my entire thesis. But I feel like he was like, I'm going to, this is making music and I'm going to show you Beatles making music. So I felt positive about that way. But ultimately, I'm with everyone here where we now have Get Back. And so I think we have the luxury of thinking about this completely differently. When will I put this on again? Like you said, I think this is a good, hey, I'm going to put it on in the background. I want to sort of see this. I want to feel this a little bit again. The rooftop feels amazing. It looks so good. So I'm excited about that. But Erika, you saw this in the theater and you went to the premiere. What was going on there? Set the scene. Who was there?
The premiere was, I went to the New York City premiere and it was first a Q&A with Michael Lindsay Hogg and that was quite short. And then we saw the movie and then kind of spent some time drinking and hobnobbing with some of our Beatles friends. I sat between my co-host on one side and Rob Sheffield on the other side in the first row, just giddy with excitement about everything. A friend of many of these pods, Ken Womack, was there. Got to hang out with him for a little bit.
Oh, the Woe. Love the Woe.
Yeah, love the Woe. He's great.
Turn the Mac.
Big
Woe.
Big Woe.
Everyone's throwing up Wu-Tang.
Everyone has just done Wu-Tang or Wings Hands.
It's a Wu-Tang.
Celebration of the
Wu-Tang.
Wu-Tang clan. Wing-Tang.
Love that guy. But Becky, you're totally right in that it's a different experience cinematically. And we sat like in the front row, which I never do for a movie. But in this case, I wanted to because I wanted a really good view of the Q&A. And so we're looking straight up, which meant that the rooftop concert had this almost feeling of realism because we're looking up at it.
You got some rooftop upskirts is what you're saying. You were you were right there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm always looking for a chance to see up post skirts. So
yeah, I get it. Same. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was great. It was so much fun. And seeing it that big, you really got to focus on the other people watching it. Like, I don't know if any of you noticed, but there's this one guy and he's standing on the roof behind the Beatles in a crowd of like office guys, and he's younger and he's wearing like a blue sweater. And the whole time he's like, fuck your dad. Like, he's the only one around him. And he's
the
so
best
excited.
lunch break I've ever been on.
Yeah.
If I ever quantum leaped, that would be me. I'd be like putting in the blue sweater guy. You know, like,
quantum leap.
There is, so on that notion, there's some fun moments I think that you catch in this, and I think they're in Get Back too that I just missed. But Michael Lindsay Hogg is getting excited about the music. Like when they cut to him sometimes, like he's kind of grooving or he's bopping his head or all, like I feel like he seems very involved through this. And at this point, we don't know what day it is or whatever, but clearly it's probably been a little bit of a grind. But he seems to stay excited about everything. You know, like I don't know. I'm just very happy that his vision has come to life. I'm not as Sam Wiles about it, I guess.
I think they did Michael Lindsay Hogg kind of dirty in Get Back, honestly. Yeah. They made him look a bit like a tool. Always
should this
talking
have
about Ripley,
should this have come out
cigar.
Should this have come out first?
I don't think it should have come out first. I really think that Get Back did so much work in forming Let It Be after 50 years of all of us being primed to think it was horrible. And I don't think that putting it out in this brilliant color would really have helped if we didn't see the backstory.
Yeah.
It almost reminds me of, like, I don't know if you guys were as basic as I was during the pandemic, but I watched The Office all the time. I had it on constantly.
The UK Office, yeah? The UK Office.
Well, I watched that too. I watched all of them. But
you guys put a season out in the UK and you're like, oh, we're doing a whole season. It's like 3 episodes of shows. I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Like a season in the States is like 24 shows. Like, you know.
Yeah,
sorry.
That's because in England they're like brevity is the soul.
Yeah, but anyway, my point was to not just illustrate how basic I was, but there was a point when Peacock came out as a network, and what they did was they gave us these extended cuts of the U.S. Office, and this almost reminded me of that. Like, I'm seeing this familiar stuff that, you know, I saw from Get Back, but it's enhanced. It's different. It's a little augmented. We're seeing it from a different perspective. You know, they keep saying that there's not a single frame of footage that both Get Back and Let It Be actually share. So we're seeing this the same.
I don't believe that totally, but okay,
no, I think they're saying like camera angles. Maybe we're just seeing it from a different camera, because they had like 6 or 7 different cameras around at all times. Yeah. So they're kind of splitting hairs when they say that.
Yeah, fair.
I felt like some of the interviews on the street were reused, but that's also probably like a one camera shot type thing. Those seemed like familiar because I just watched that Get Back episode the day before.
Yeah, like the guy's like, you might as well get something for free in this country.
Yeah. I just don't understand why.
I love these people.
Ethan just
it's funny,
down
Erika, that
bottle of
you mentioned TV.
You really did.
Ethan, it's funny, Erika.
No, sorry. Go ahead, Sam.
Erika, it's funny that you should mention TV, because to me, this has a bit of an air. Like, say if in the future they go, right, technology is powerful enough that we can recreate Kit Harington and all the actors from Game of Thrones, and we're going to redo the last season through the power of the MAL software. Peter Jackson's going to redo the final season of Game of Thrones
and make it good.
And they do it, and they make it good. They take all the original footage and somehow make it work. And then Disney Plus comes out and they re-release the original season 5 or season 8 or 7, whatever the final season of Game of Thrones was, and they've remastered it. And everyone's supposed to go, oh yeah, it was good originally. I feel like the wool has kind of been lifted from my eyes just a little bit here. I mean, I don't mean to like completely shit on Michael Lindsay Hogg. I know I'm being a little bit acerbic. And,
you're getting into your opinion. Go ahead.
A little bit jokey. Plus, he never answered my emails. So anyway, you had your chance, Hogmeister. You had your chance. So anyway, the Hogmeister General. That is the official title. I don't know. there's a sense that I have no need for this anymore. It's totally superfluous. You know that awful Paul McCartnney album where it's the like selections?
Yeah, I know all of them.
From,
all the best.
No, not all the best. His live 1989 tour had a
Tripping
big
the Live. Tripping the Live, fantastic.
I hate that
and there
name.
was like,
that name
and there was
so much.
there was like a selections album of it where it had like 10 of the, this feels like Get Back the selections.
The budget. When Bruce Springsteen released Tracks, and then he released like one album of the best of Tracks, and you're like, no, just buy Tracks. Get the Tracks. Yeah. It's my song buying Bruce Springsteen's Tracks.
When you were talking about being a film student and all of this, I think we just have to think about this so differently. Like the world as it exists now, for Peter Jackson to take all of this footage and digitize it and sort it out and be able to sort of work all these narratives and improve the audio and everything is so different than what Michael Lindsay Hogg had available to him, where he's like probably hand cutting film and looking at it back. Like it's just such a different process, and it was so manual and handheld.
Great point.
And how is he supposed, like, it's this, right? Like if you've shot film or shot movies or anything like this, you go home and you suddenly realize you have all of this footage and you have to watch it, and you have to watch it in real time to understand what to do with it. And it becomes crazy. Like it's very hard to deal with. So it's the same thing I said in the upfront, but like, it's probably a little easier to go back and be like, all right, let's focus on the music. I know we have some good takes of this and that. So I feel like he almost like burdened himself to be like, oh man, I shot the Beatles for 30 something days, for 16-hour days, whatever it was.
He shot the Beatles? Are they okay?
Oh, no.
Too soon.
Oh shit! Oh no, man. Oh, we like to have fun on this program.
Ethan, you want to retake that? So everyone, we have Ethan Alexander from Fans on the Run podcast. Ethan, did you like the Let It Be film?
Yeah.
Hey, I think we should maybe talk about favorite moments, like or something that did stick out to us. I forgot how much I love that You Really Got a Hold on Me cover.
Oh, yeah.
That they do in this.
Yeah.
And I remember when
good.
Get Back, like that drew me to that song. When I first saw this in the early 2000s, I was like, holy shit, that's a great song. And I went back and listened to the Beatles recording of it, and I was like, and that's an okay version of something that is actually really great on this album. And obviously the Smokey Robinson version's amazing. Like, that brought me to that song, and I was really excited to see that again, and it kind of even exceeded my expectations in this viewing. Like, it's just unbelievable. Like, it's a lower key, and the way that George is putting himself into it, and like he's reestablishing himself in the band after quitting. I just love that moment. I think it's really, really fucking cool.
Yeah, I agree. That
one of the best.
Really good.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
One of the best.
Great moments.
I'll throw one out. I really like. I'm a big fan of the Besame Mucho bit. I think is fantastic.
Oh, Paul sounded like Pavarotti. It's great.
I know.
It's incredible. Yeah.
For a second, I was like, what is that?
Really, but it's so fun. And I also, and I've loved it since the first time I heard it on Anthology was the version they do of Rip It Up.
Yeah.
Yeah, is awesome. Like I've always enjoyed that. So it's nice to see them do that. I really enjoy that. And then of course the Rooftop is amazing. It's just absolutely killer.
Jonathan,
if I piggyback on the Rooftop, I think what I love in that moment is when the police, what do you call them Sam? You call them bobbies?
Coppers, we call them running coppers, mate.
Yeah, you took that from us.
Can I ask a question about them?
Were you doing an impression of an Englishman in that one? Because that's number 3, if so.
No. I'm doing an impression of an American doing an impression of an Englishman.
Okay.
It's actually very nuanced.
Still number 3. Still impression number 3. But
Goddamn film student.
Why do they wear the hat with the strap that comes?
It's
just
so
above
inefficient.
Above the chin. It serves no purpose.
It's awful.
And if you watch,
it reminds me of a horse. Our police serve no purpose.
All right. I'm gonna.
Hats do make them look like they're on their way to their community theater performance of Pirates of Penzance that night. It's a little bit silly.
It's a goofy hat. Yeah. It's a weird hat. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm going to piggyback on favorite moments, though, in that I feel like when the Bobbies show up, Paul gets just a little bit more excited. Like, I think he likes playing Get Back There and being a little defiant and a little bit like, ooh, all right.
He's naughty.
Well, he sings it. You're going to get arrested.
He's like, he just like gets in, and it's in Get Back, too. But I like that moment where he's getting revved up about it, right? Like, the Beatles are playing live for the first time, and the fucking cops show up. Like, when I was in a teenage band, like the cops showed up all the time, and we would sort of love it. They'd be like, "Oh, you can't handle what we're doing."
Scotty and I played in a cover band of 40-year-olds playing like Creedence
on Cape Cod. Our town had 3 police
there.
officers, I think. And
there's a great bit in Get Back that I was bummed is not in Let It Be, so the cops show up when they're doing Don't Let Me Down, I think, for the last time, if I'm not mistaken. And McCartney looks back and sees him and gets Billy Preston's attention, and he's like, "Look behind you." And it cuts to Billy Preston, and he looks behind him and sees the cops and does the kind of thing that you would do in class if you got caught, like staring at a girl or cheating, where he kind of goes, "Huh? What?" Just like looks around like it's such a great moment of like, "Oh, nothing."
Yeah.
Like, Jonathan, as a professional podcaster, has just done a lot of body work, which we know plays well on the radio. So thank you for that. But
on the radio. I can't believe no one else has brought this up yet. George Martin rolling the sleeves up, playing a shaker during Dig It.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Unreal. Just getting down. And he's so into it. He's into that weird, janky, probably pretty bad song that they are making. Like, it's awesome.
It's even better because you never see George Martin. Even in Get Back, you hardly see him.
I know.
And there's all this strife around him with not really being involved. And then you see him and it like slowly pans over. And there he is.
To the most dude. It's like, wait, did you have a reefer, George? How did you get those sleeves up to the elbow? Like, what happened here?
Who's the bald chap,
George
Cooper, who does percussion in the concert for George?
Ray
he reminded
Cooper.
me of him. He reminded me of Ray Cooper. Yeah, so when me and the lads used to get together, they used to hand me the shaker. And,
Is that 3 or 4?
That might be 4.
We're calling it 3, I think, but it's close.
Yeah, because I love it. Really it's a perpetual 3.
Yeah, it's 3 forever now. Yeah.
So what do we think about the
other favorite moments? Yeah, Erika, what do you got?
Yeah, I've got 2. So I'm gonna take them 2. The first is One After 909, which is I love the song. It always freaked me out when I was a kid and I didn't really understand time. And Beatles time is so weird that, that they're singing a song. Like, how do they even remember what they sang in 1963? Because it looks like it's like 45 years between, when you're 8 years old, between like Let It Be and, 1963. And they're having such a good time and they're just brought back to their youth. And it's such a lovely moment when they're doing it up on the rooftop. And then my second, I'm just going to stand Michael Lindsay Hogg right now, is during the rooftop scene, when the police start coming and the amps get plugged in and unplugged and all this, and the drama starts happening. If you watch him, it's so fascinating because you're watching him in real time. He's like, oh, okay, shit, something's going down. And he's like trying to like figure out like what's going on and how to organize it. Like, and it's interesting to see somebody reacting to something like that in real time. The only time he's ever going to have this experience is right then. And they capture him. And it's great.
I thought it was interesting in that moment because now we know they have the footage of the engineering room with George Martin and Glyn Johns. And they also have the footage of the lobby. And he chose to use none of it. Right? Like he's just focused. It's just an interesting artistic
like the best
decision.
part of the lot.
Right.
Like,
it's like the cops rolling in and them lying and like creating this narrative about like
like Kevin and what's the
secretary's name?
The secretary's name. I can't remember her name. But watching, yeah, and like, no, it's not Chris O'Dell. It's I don't remember, but it's not Chris O'Dell. But watching her and Jimmy the doorman like basically run interference for 10, 15 minutes, is like one of my favorite parts of Get Back, and not even mentioned in Let It Be. That's what like is.
You chose to put these cameras in different locations that get used in this future project, and then you chose to disregard them in your final cut. It's just it was an interesting artistic decision to me anyway.
Not to mention he built a secret trap door with a camera inside.
Right, exactly. Like, yeah, you spent an hour throwing some cardboard up and you still don't use that camera footage at all? Come on, man. Anyone else?
I love that bit where George Martin comes in and sees it and recognizes the box and Get Back, and he's like, yeah, okay, I know you. Clever.
Ethan, favorite moments?
In Let It Be?
Yes.
No, in film history.
Life, love.
Yeah. Today, in your day in your life.
I wonder if when they were making the film Stop Making Sense, they noticed there's a bit of a parallel. It starts with someone walking. And then, but the difference is he puts out a drum head instead of
or
like, I have a tape to play for you. No, I don't want to play. Yeah. Because this is radio. No one saw this. I just downed a whole bottle of something. So I thought this was the drinking show.
It is. When we hang out with you though,
stop trying to make me articulate.
I'm drinking.
You're always drinking.
I think we're all drinking.
You're always drinking very bright colored beverages. I don't know what you guys have in Canada. They're always blue or red.
He's drinking.
Sam looks like he's holding up a bottle of cologne that he's drinking.
I think.
That's real Jaguar. Ethan's drinking all dress beer. It's like the chips. They put all the seasonings in there. That's how it works.
Exactly. No. My favorite bit was also one after 909.
Yeah, I do like that when that comes out.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good.
There's a funny one here that...
What's the name of that song they did about the octopus? I've never quite figured that out.
The one about a garden that has octopuses in it?
That one.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I thought that
it was called like botanical octopods, I think. Like
that sounds like a Yes album. Botanical octopods.
But like we look at the end of the Get Back movie, and I don't mean to keep coming back and saying like it was better, it was better, it was better. But when they are listening back in the mixing room, and they're toe tapping to One After 909 and smoking cigarettes, and everyone's got giant grins on their faces, and their girlfriends and wives are there, and they're all bobbing their heads, and like knowing that they just made a barn burner. Like this song sounds hot, like it is great. Yeah. You're like, you're just missing that final piece. One thought I've had is as we're talking here, it's interesting to me, and I don't know that it even deserves reaction or comment. The original Glenn Johns album that is never released is called Get Back. It is trashed and ends up being released by Phil Spector as Let It Be, the album, right? And is a pretty, I would say is a better album than Get Back. The original movie is called Let It Be, the opposite, right? By Michael Lindsay Hogg, is trashed and panned by critics, is then remastered and called Get Back. And so we've got this like reciprocal relationship between album and video that I don't know. I don't know what that means, but just an interesting thing.
And also the Beatles skipped every possible premiere of the Let It Be film in the beginning and in the reissue.
Because they knew it felt nasty. And I think it must have been hard to create the product for that moment if you were there. Because I think it probably did feel heavy. I think there were, especially if you were at Twickenham, it must have felt like, God, like there are not great feels here. And then you get to Abbey Road, and I said it earlier, like George says, the vibes are better, but so for Glyn Johns and for MLH, I think like because they were there, it's hard to pull themselves out and create a narrative from it. Like it's a little easier for Phil Spector to pull it out and be like, nope, this is actually the best stuff that came out of this. I wasn't there to know the emotion and the feeling of that take. And it's a little easier. I'm not going to say easier for Phil Jackson after he created the triangle offense to do. The guy's done a lot. I'm just going to say the guy's done a lot, but it's
Zen master.
It's easier for him in an objective sense to pick the best feeling footage because you weren't in the room at that moment. That sure. Knowing that 30 seconds before this, there was actually a fight between these two guys or something that colors this in a different way.
Well, I think it's really easy to get bogged down into the process of making a record or creating a project of whatever magnitude it is. And I do think that the sessions on the whole kind of fall prey to that, in that they get bogged down by trying to make something and they don't really ever seem to know what it is they're making until kind of the tail end of the project. But I think also like one of the other big things that Get Back kind of explained to me, but also Let It Be drives home, is like, this is kind of just the relationship of being in a band. Like, it's a super intense relationship. There are arguments that we see on screen that maybe seem a lot more important or intense than they probably actually were in real time. And probably the things that are more impactful are things that we don't even get because we're not in that band or we're not in that group. And we don't know that relationship as well as we do. We still don't know the ins and outs of it. And I think, anybody that's been in a group of any kind that creates something, whether it's, a band or any kind of creative entity or, group entity that creates something, like that relationship gets real intense in ways that like other people, outsiders, don't get. And I think we see a lot of that in Let It Be, but it's not always the way that we maybe see it. Like, I think like Becker, the scene you were talking about where Paul's talking and you just see John's face, that seems a lot more telling to me than the Paul and George argument does. Yeah, that seems more realistic of like where that relationship might have been at the time.
And clearly there's some probably funny Paul moments in here, period. But I also feel like he's dealing with things very directly. Like, I do feel like he's talking to George, like as a brother, as a man-to-man thing. Like, I think he's like, when he's like, I hear that everything I'm saying annoys you. Like, I feel like that is pretty honest, like I don't feel like it's an awful moment. And honestly, when, Ethan is fully cocooning right now, so I'm a little moderately distracted. But I also
proof of life. I've had way worse fights in recording studios.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think that
that moment right there is two like really just frustrated musicians. Yeah. Like they're just frustrated at each other, but also frustrated at the situation they've been put in. Yeah, they're up against the timeline, and Paul is trying to like. He's
a timeline of Paul's creation too. Like, let's to be honest, right?
Well, yeah, but Paul
they all agreed to it though.
In a way, Paul is trying to direct, but he's also trying to just expedite the creative process that they normally do. But he's like, we know how to write a song, we know how to do it. And George is like, yeah, we just play it and play it and play it and play it, and eventually we discover our parts. And Paul's like, we don't have time to do that. Like, this thing has to be done in 12 days. Like, we don't have time to play this song shitty.
It's not Ringo's fault.
Gotta make the magic Christian.
And it's got to be really frustrating.
I'm gonna make new Blotto Beatles shirts that say "I blame Ringo."
but like
1969.
Still mad at Ringo bumper stickers.
largely, I mean, George's part is like he's the lead guitar that kind of like is adding decoration to like the foundation of this song that is largely Paul's, right? And it's like I equate it to like George is trying to put frosting on a cake that is not baked yet, and Paul is trying to like, all right, if we stick this in the microwave, we can make it bake faster, and like and like it's just like they're just butting heads at like they all clearly know how to write songs, and he's just trying to rush it. And
some desperation or something, yeah.
It's like
but Paul is so right about George's part on "I've Got a Feeling," right? Like what he's describing to George on how to play that guitar, like that descending part that's just falling and has no steps.
We're all putting our hands up. Let the listening audience know we're all putting our hands up.
Actually, I really liked that part.
That part is so good, you know. But I think Paul is right in correcting that. You know,
it's the weird choices they made.
And we see it in Get Back. He teaches Ringo through miming and drum talk how to play the drums on "Don't Let Me Down." He goes like, "No, it should be," and he puts two hands up. He goes, "It should be cha 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 cha." And that ends up being the drum part for the verses of "Don't Let Me Down." Like Paul understands arrangement like nobody else of like what is going to make a final product sound better. That's why
I want to hear from I want to hear from
here?
Our greatest Paul stan right here. We have Sam Wiles on the phone, you know, who's dedicated his life and his work to Paul McCartney. How do you feel like he comes off in sort of this whole show, this whole edit? I know we have Get Back. How do you feel about how he comes off in Let It Be?
Well, it's funny because quite recently, what's his name? Dave Gilmour came out and said, "Oh, I've watched Get Back recently, and I can't believe they released that. Paul looked really bad in it." And supposedly this is the one where Paul looked really bad. And I think a lot of it is purely down to it's almost like track listing. I think the placement of the scene with the spat is just frankly too early in quite a short film, and I think it colours the rest of the project in a weird way that it probably isn't warranted. I mean, as a little aside, Paul is always right. I don't think there's been a single occasion where he has been proven to be wrong.
Agreed.
Amen, brother.
Sure. Wait, did Erika hold on? Erika,
George's solo in Taxman, you know.
You just co-signed that comment, Erika?
Hell yeah.
Oh, all right, okay.
Yeah. I think Ethan did as well.
Yeah.
What?
Look, all of my best friends are smarter than me, and they're better than me at almost everything. And I'm like attracted to that genius, and I know that they can be frustrated when, say, we're jamming in a garage together, and I'm just doing like the root notes on a bass guitar, barely keeping up, and it's like, "No, Sam, you just do this, boom, little, bing, ding, 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 bing, 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 bing," and like he flips it around and then like does a backflip.
And you're too kind.
Yeah,
oh my God, Sam just did a backflip like on camera. That was freaking crazy, you guys.
It's 7 in the morning in the UK.
So agile.
And Sam is
and all without a drop of rum, as Jack Sparrow would say. But yeah, I think like that is Paul in real life. I mean, the frustrated genius trope is embodied in him, and it must be so annoying that the world isn't just Agent Smith's copies of himself that he can dictate to like play all of the
and one is Billy,
I need more,
and one is Billy Joel, and you're like, "Ugh, boy, what have I wrought?" You're like Frankenstein. What have I wrought?
No. To go back to Ethan Simpson's reference earlier, that would be more like when Homer gets cloned, and then they pan across a wide shot, and Peter Griffin is in there. There's just one that stands. That clone's not too good.
Yeah,
I think I was reading.
Okay. Okay. I think building on what Sam just said, like Paul McCartney is, he's an absolute genius. To me, he's like, you know, that scene in Get Back that we didn't see in Let It Be. I mean, it's like watching Mozart write Così fan tutte or something. It's incredible. And I think there was kind of an energy mismatch at this time in the Beatles. You know, Paul has a real, like, I don't know, like Tracy Flick or Hermione Granger sort of energy right now. And the other people do not have that. Yeah. And so Paul is trying hard to get everybody up to his level of energy, commitment, and natural genius here. And
George, it's Leviosa.
There's a bunch of
say
scenes.
It however you want if it pleases you.
Yeah. There's a bunch of scenes where they're playing and Paul is the only one standing up and everybody else is sitting down and he's like, "Are we doing this?" And everybody else is just.
I just want to be clear. We're doing Harry Potter. Is that what happened? I mean, I don't like. Here's what like. So Harry Potter is he's a boy witch who has a pig, right? Like I'm trying to, I try, right? Like his pig is named Hogwarts and he they go on journeys together. Is that what happens?
Yeah, they go on journeys to find some kind of ring in the middle of the earth, I think.
Yeah, okay.
The real philosopher's stone is the friends we made along the way.
Well, that's profound.
All right.
See, all I could think
I
of
saw it
now
on Twitter today, I think, or X. Maybe you guys call it X.
Oh, I eats.
Maybe you call it X. But the timeline I thought that was pretty crazy is the distance between like Let It Be and Help as a film is like 5 years time span, which like seems pretty wild when we sort of lay it out. Like when you
consider that we've almost done Blotto Beatles for 5 years.
When you think about the time frame, of these things where you're like, oh, the evolution of the Beatles and what's going on and all of these things, and like it happens so quick now that we're sort of reassessing these things and talking about them.
I do think we're entering a Let It Be era. We're like, you and I are going to start fighting.
I'm frankly pretty sick of you. And it's I feel tonight,
you're going to start talking to me and I'm just going to look at you. I'm going to look past you, John, longingly. Like,
I just feel like whenever we're on the show, I'm just annoying you, but I'm not trying to get at you.
Yeah, it's about the pod, man. Like it's just about the pod.
A bit of enthusiasm from Becca,
I felt that was just like really earnest. Like I don't know, like I thought it was two people just talking to each other eye to eye. Like I give Paul a ton of credit in this, just to sort of be like putting his feelings out there and be like, I feel this, but like, what do you want from me? And George isn't giving him anything back. John isn't giving anything back. Like you're saying, John is sort of very eye rolly at that moment, and we just have the Paul back of head shot. But like you're saying, he's here and he's orchestrating this and he's pushing it forward, and all the mismatch of energy. I thought Erika is like my favorite. That's my favorite comment tonight. Like I think that's so accurate of what you're saying. He's here and he has this vibe for it and he's putting it forward. And honestly, I feel like probably like Ringo has more of that energy in Get Back. We're seeing sort of a little bit of that coming back. Like he's not so sleepy in Get Back, maybe, like he's showing up first, maybe at some of the things, like he's there and he's ready,
Well, I think Paul is the one who's like actively choosing to put his energy into the Beatles basket. Like he's at a point where like he can't stop creating. He's just making so much music. It's just coming out of him so fast.
And John's got nothing.
Yeah, he's desperately trying to get everyone to keep up with it, but he's also the one who's like, George has been putting his focus into Indian music and into doing the Wonderwall project, into the Hare Krishna thing and like all that. John's been focusing on Yoko and doing Plastic Ono stuff and doing more art things.
And heroin.
At least we forget. But Paul's like, the Beatles are his outlet. That's the route he still chooses to put his art into. And I think he's looking around kind of going like, where is everybody? Like, come on, please. Like, what are we doing here, guys?
He Paul is such a genius. He has time to make Let It Be and impregnate Linda. He can do it all. Do it all at the same time.
With that hair and that beard, of course he's impregnating Linda. You can impregnate me with that hair and beard.
He didn't even have to do anything.
50 years.
Eat it, baby. Eat it. I turned to Julia and I was like, this makes me regret cutting my hair off. Out again. Like, God, that dude is just so good looking there. Jesus Christ. Unfair.
Everyone's coming in already feel like, even when George is playing the I Mean Mine stuff, and he's like, I don't fucking care if you put it in your show or not.
Like musical.
Whatever.
They're already like,
I didn't even care about this song.
They have this attitude. Yeah, let me play you this fantastic song, but I don't fucking care if it ends up in your film. Sorry, Sam. I'll give you an excuse. Do the George Harrison voice for what I was just doing, please.
I don't even care if it's in your film, MLA.
It was worth it. It was worth it.
We're giving you the pass
pioneered
on
that
it.
as well as Grotty. Yeah.
And so, like, that attitude of it is clearly, not in the spirit of things, and so, every circle needs a center, and in Let It Be, it's Paul.
That's
and like Paul said in Get Back, Daddy's gone now. Like he's trying to fill the void that Brian Epstein left, and they don't have anybody yet. He's doing his best with that.
Yeah.
Nobody's buying into what he's trying to do, but he's doing it.
But on the back of that, you have this fly in the wall thing. You have this sort of funny vibe of the entire thing. I do feel like I come out of it a little bit when we sort of get to the before the rooftop, the performances where Paul is doing everything. The band is direct to camera. I do feel like it suddenly gets a little funny when they do Two of Us and Long and Winding Road. It becomes a performance film all of the sudden. Like,
it was interesting.
That
to
does
me, though,
feel
to
startling
watch
to me.
Paul, I forget if it's Let It Be or Long and Winding Road, because very similar setup. Paul looking at the camera the way he does, like singing to the camera, is exactly the same way he sings to the camera less than a year earlier on Hey Jude.
Yes.
And you're like, and he looks so wildly different. He like his eyes and his mouth and his tilt are the same, but his hair and everything is so different. And you're like, it's just a clear sign of like the hard road the Beatles are on, of like 6 months is 4 years for the rest of us, of like what living is.
I mean, in his defense, he that's not Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney died.
Fair. That's fair. Yeah.
He's doing his best. He's doing his best.
William Shears.
I see why you're so popular on Truth Social.
Hey, we talked. That's all right.
And it's funny you said the Hey Jude thing, because that comes up in the sort of George fight a little bit, where it's like Paul says, right, it's like when we were talking about Hey Jude and like, should we play guitar all the way through?
It's always 6 months difference, like I think around 6-8 months. It's wild.
But you can see like the frustrations that they have been having have gone back. Like it's not like in the moment we're having a fight. It's like it's been Paul has been a little bit directing or like suggesting to George what his part should be or whatever it is. Like it's like there's a bunch of times in this where they're playing along and like Paul will just kind of like sing out a part where he's like, I want a lead guitar part here, and it's going to go and like he kind of like mimics a voice, and then like sometimes occasionally he'll scat a part, and then occasionally like George will play something similar and like he'll get like a little nod of approval, and it's like, this is a weird dynamic that's happening right here.
Yeah, and it's that classic George quote about between White Album and Let It Be, right? He goes out and hangs with Dylan and the band, and he's like, I came back kind of jazzed about music and what it can be and like what a communal group looks like, and then I was back in the winter of discontent with the Beatles, like that. It was just kind of the same old stuff of being directed at and all that, and a lot of ego and a lot. It's hard to fault Paul. Super talented and has an idea of arrangement and vision and all of that. That John has let go, and then George has his thing that he's like, I also have 30 bangers that I would like to play, but you guys don't want to do them. I don't know.
Paul never let George forget that he was 13 years old.
Always 13
Always
months
treated him like a little
baby.
kid. Never really acknowledged the growth that he had.
Yeah.
I think
it's funny because the Ringo moment starts with Ringo and George, right? Like this beautiful moment starts with sort of without John and Paul.
It's kind of the lesser Beatles.
Right.
In a way.
Yeah. And I don't want to say that because I celebrate them in my life all the time, but that it starts with them and then George Martin comes in. Like it builds on this funny thing, which is not part of the Beatles anymore, right? Like George and Ringo, and then George Martin comes in, and then John ends up coming in. Like in the shot, we see John he gets his cigarettes first, drums. And then he goes out to the drums, and Yoko's with him, and so you see that moment slightly differently. He is part of it, but I do feel like there's something, and we keep coming back to it, but I feel like there is still something so special about George helping Ringo with that moment, you know.
And giving up the songwriting credit as well that he clearly deserves. Like, he should steal like half of Ringo's entire Beatles inheritance legally, but he doesn't. Good guy, George. It's
I think they're all doing fine, you know. I'm happy for all of them.
You want to see what we own 0.5% of?
I think it's also interesting that, you know, kind of from the get-go, George, as they're feeling these way through these songs, you know, George is attempting way more lead guitar than he normally has done in any song in the Beatles catalog. Like, usually he's kind of just playing, you know, stabs of chords and then little licks here and there, and maybe he does a hook. But there are moments where he's just kind of noodling throughout entire sections of songs, either through a wah-wah pedal or through a Leslie. He's just constantly trying to find counter melodies and lead parts. And it's almost like he's heard like what you Claptons are doing and what kind of more of the Guitar Hero guys are doing. He's picking that up and not trying to just stay kind of as like the occasional little lead guitar guy. Like, he's trying to kind of step out of that role and be more of a guitar player, which is kind of an interesting place because a lot of those songs in the sessions, he's kind of stepping all over whatever else is happening, trying to find his parts, which can make listening to some of those tapes kind of challenging sometimes.
So everybody, I think we're probably getting pretty close here. Anyone, final thoughts, final takes, final moments you want to celebrate from the Let It Be movie? What do we think?
I'm happy it's out there. I'll probably throw it on occasionally. It made me more excited to watch Get Back again, which I haven't really gone into in the last year or two.
Get Back has been a good go to sleep thing for me. Like in times when I'm like, I'm struggling to fall asleep or whatever, I put it on and it is comfort food. And I don't know that this will be. My final thing was like, I wonder if the Beatles would have been better served by being like, hey, let's get to a studio and practice and rip a bunch of oldies and do like a covers record. And that's, I think if they went out and they were going to do a live show of that, they might have been jazzed on it, and that might have led him to the next thing a little more.
But like, isn't that the death of every artist when it's
you might be right. You might be
Rod
right on
Stewart does the American Songbook. Like, that's like, I am immediately changing the channel, you know.
Yeah,
but if you saw them up there
back was always
on
tougher.
The rooftop or in the desert doing You Really Got a Hold on Me in the way that they did it in that studio and practiced it,
they're not dry yet, you know. Like, they're not at the end, you know. They're going to that as a comfort place, but
John's
all of them have
dry
songs
right now, man.
It's like procrastination for them.
Yeah,
it's preventing them from dealing with the issue head on. We're not on the same page. Songs aren't coming for everybody as easily. We're not connecting. Let's just play Buddy Holly tape.
I think a bit of that was.
Did it bother anyone else that the John Lennon Across the Universe, when they were very close up on the mic, that it had a hair on it? And I'm like, why didn't Peter Jackson fix this hair? I'm like, we have all this technology, and we have this bad like mustache. Mustache hair, like
to John Lennon's mouth, like it's one or the other.
Like they didn't have the budget for it. Like, I was like, fix this. It's awful. It's very distracting to me. But sorry. Anyways, I want everyone to have their last.
Yeah. Anyone else? Final takes. What is your final say or something you didn't get out to talk about Let It Be?
Erika, I have one more question in your follow up. When you went to the Let It Be premiere, were there any Beatles associated folks? Like,
Sean Lennon was there.
He was there, okay.
And he zipped out before the reception, but I did see him coming in. Elvis Costello was apparently there too, which I would have totally geeked out over Flowers in the Dirt with him. So I'm glad I didn't see him because it would have been embarrassing. But those were the two guys.
Two big FPs.
I do a very
like to
good
hear that
Elvis
Sean
Costello impression.
Let's hear it.
Okay, and never mind.
I'd like to hear that.
I'll work up to it.
I like to hear that Sean was there because I feel like there hasn't been as much fanfare about this versus Get Back. So
yeah, and I kept thinking about Sean the whole time too, because can you imagine if you had footage of your parents before they got married, before they had you, like in love in the beginning, like how crazy that would be to watch.
11 seconds of your mom.
Well, okay, very much.
And everyone hates those 11 seconds. Those are the worst 11 seconds of the movie.
But them dancing, that is the most beautiful thing when they're doing
the waltz, when they're doing that waltz to I Me Mine, because John doesn't want to play guitar in the song. That's beautiful.
I think they swapped out the song on the end credits, right? They play a version of "Oh Darlin'" that I think is on Anthology 3 on the credits outro.
I thought it used to end with the same instrumental it started with. Am I wrong in that?
I don't remember, but
I thought that was different too. Though
we'll have to check Pornhub.
Yeah, please refer to Pornhub.
There's only one way to find it.
At the very, very end of the credits, there's this little quote from John that I think is funny that they just stuck it on there. Is this like, okay, let's do it again, actually, because I nearly forgot it, you know? And it's like I felt like that, like kind of like getting notes and stuff for this. I was like, oh, all right, it's over. I kind of forgot everything that just happened. Let's just start it again.
All right, last thoughts. I'll say that I think. I'm really glad that between this and Get Back that we've had this time to redefine this period, because I think the fact that not only was it released after Let It Be, but it was really one of the only Beatles projects where there was such a lag in editing. Beatles things happened in the moment. And if you think about, they had just done the White Album, they had just done Hey Jude. In this, there are the beginnings of the things that are going to lead to the divorce, not even the beginnings, but probably the middles. But you look at the Rooftop concert, they're on a high that leads to them going back to the studio and doing fucking Abbey Road. Yeah. Like they are not, musically at least, at this point of total...
I'm not done. We're not done.
They're done at all. And I think that it's important to remember that this isn't the end. This is kind of... I mean, it's almost the end, but this is kind of the dawn of their final, rebirth as a band.
I love that idea, Erika, of the concert being the thing, like the Rooftop being the thing that spurs them to do the next, because George especially is so against, like, I'm not going to climb up on the chimney to play. And you watch him, and he's having fun up there. Like, they're in front of people again. They're having a like, you're feeding.
He's the one that turns the amps back on.
And you understand, especially after Japan, as I heard from our friends Jonathan and Ethan, why they removed themselves from touring. At that point. And then they're like, but it's also really cool to play in front of people. Like, we actually kind of killed that. We played songs okay in a studio that we crushed live in front of a studio audience. Like,
and isn't that the Paul argument when he's talking to John?
Yes, it
film,
is.
Right? Where he's saying, like, we're uncomfortable and then we need to get comfortable. And,
he knows how talented they are, and he knows if they're put up to the line and the pressure, they're going to step up to the plate, right? Not to use a sports reference, especially today when the Celtics are losing, Jonathan. I know you're a big Pels guy. Celtics,
it don't matter to me right now.
You guys are talking about it all.
I can't. Can we just
tonight?
No fucking sports ball talk. Can we keep
sports ball?
But not to mention, the cops came, and I think that really pumped them up. I think they got really. I think they had fun. It's finally fun for seven a while.
That kind of like tickles their rebel fancy a little bit, And yeah, George, clicking the amp back on is kind of the most punk move.
I like that.
Being like,
So Mal is shutting the amps off, right? Mal is sort of like in that shot. Mal is like, all right,
a cop told him.
Well, the cop is looking right at him. You're like, you're going to turn that off right now.
Mal in that moment.
Look, because Mal said, I'll give you one more song. He thought he was giving the right compromise. They didn't tell anybody else what he was doing. So.
Yeah, that's true.
It also made me laugh because I rewatched the Rooftop from Get Back, and they overdub the sound of the amp, like the toggle switch on the amp clicking on and off. He does it so loud. Like, guys,
Come on.
Click.
You don't need that.
GarageBand click sound.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Sam Wiles, we see the sun rising behind you over the rooftop in the UK right now. It's majestic. I can't believe you hung out with us until sunrise in the UK.
Amazing. I'm going to call an audible right now. I'm going to call an audible. We're about to wrap up. But I also know, Becker, we do have a couple voicemails that have dialed in to hear from this cavalcade of Beatles podcasting stars. And you probably have to pick through the thousands. I'm going to ask you to pick through the thousands. Maybe
only the cream. Only the cream.
Yeah, let's play the cream of the crop.
Maybe say, well, I think about the movie. No.
You will. But you have to wait until it's at least noon in the UK, I think, at this point. So I'm going to play a couple of them. These are some random ones.
Just random. Pick out of the 500. Just pick maybe.
I'm going to play this. I think you guys can hear this.
This is Paul McCartney. Word to your moms. I came to drop bombs.
This is what happens when we have an open solicitation for voice.
Well, I can't believe Paul called in to just drop a quick rhyme.
I'm going to try.
Flow, Paul.
Again, that wasn't Paul. Paul died in 1966.
Hey there,
can't
guys.
stump me.
Unnamed listener from Canada here. I've got another bone to pick with you guys.
I know who this is.
I don't know if you're too sober or not this time. You still need to fix that. I listened to the last one. Still need to get a hang on that. But why in the hell do you keep having that stupid fans on the dumb? That's what I call it. Fans on the dumb guy. Ethan Alexanian on your show. He's not good. Frankly, he's terrible. He has no idea what he's talking about. He's a hack. He's a fraud. He's a jabroni. You should just kick him off. Never invite him back.
Becker, shut this off. Cut him off. Ship him out. He's home, Becker. He's on this guy.
Sandman. Bring out the Sandman. Get him out of here.
Crumbles.
Yeah, get off my phone, as Tom Sharpman would say.
I will say that I'm not sure who that listener is, but
yeah,
I guess we'll never know.
Wildly disagree. Ethan, you're a treasure and a joy every day that you come on our podcast. I don't know who would say that about you.
I can't believe this is the version of your podcast where we're all not wildly drunk.
Speak for yourself, Erika.
I learned my limits after that first time.
He's been slamming Mike's Hard Lemonades for the last 2.5 hours.
Ethan did call in recently and heckle us for
Canada,
not being.
They're calling Mike's Hard Lemon A.
Ethan did call in and heckle us for not being drunk enough on the show recently, and I actually took it to heart. I did.
And our next episode, seltzer, and our next
Don't take
next episode.
Anything I say at face value.
Our next episode of Blotto Beatles, I brought it. I brought it hard for you. So we did. I also got this text. I'm going to read it out. I thought this was a voicemail, but got some feedback. This listener did not leave their name, but they said I thought it was a little boring. Which is so strange because I rarely feel bored about the Beatles. The lack of contextualization and choppiness skipping from day to day drove me crazy. I think Paul got a bad edit. I thought the video quality seemed subpar compared to Get Back. But I've since learned Michael Lindsay Hogg asked Peter Jackson for this feeling. So,
okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I think he did ask for minimal
make it a little retro.
And despite all this, thank you, Michael Lindsay Hogg, for capturing all the amazing footage. Yeah, and I wish your vision for a concert in Tripoli had come true. So,
did Michael Lindsay Hogg comment that?
This is thank you, Michael Lindsay Hogg.
That's from MLH at AOL.
That's from at MLH 69420.
That's a good
But
reference.
I think that's a really actually nice sentiment that I would, before I gave Sam Wiles any sort of last comments, that's a nice sentiment to say, like, we should be celebrating the fact that this footage was even remotely
Michael made the footage happen. Like, whatever we think, he was under constraints of a final product that, like, was it for TV? Was it a movie? What, like, doesn't know what he's necessarily I thought I was making a concert film with a little bit of stuff ahead of time is how he comes into it.
But to film 60 hours of footage, it seems like...
And film 60 hours of footage. And then, like, at the end of the day, it's like, God, I got to make something out of this. And, like,
he had to get
probably a little money.
An entity that was breaking up to agree on, like, what was, it's like me trying to release my Christmas footage from sixth grade while my parents were divorcing,
Erika, you're absolutely right. Like in Get Back, he is made to look the fool a little bit, right? And like, but respect to the guy, because make him look like the fool. He's the one that's saying set up every camera in this place. Had he had the autonomy to make an 8 to 10 hour documentary, I think he would have made something pretty brilliant. Like it
wasn't an option.
Yeah, and you got to remember, this is now reality television. Like those guys who filmed Survivor, they know exactly how to do it. Nobody was doing this.
Right.
Yeah, that's...
All right, let's
Sam Wiles, it's
the master
Sam Wiles,
of the evening.
Sam Wiles, it's now noon in London.
Time to drink.
Down. Yeah.
Last thoughts.
It's funny how we're talking about this movie like some sort of person in the friend zone. Like, I'm just glad I'm glad it's there. I'm glad they're available when I want them at my own convenience. But, it's not a main priority. The main priority is this 3-part documentary over here. Are
you saying Let It Be is a side piece?
Yeah. Let It Be is a backdoor man, 100%. This is probably the biggest cinematic release for what is essentially a DVD bonus feature that we are ever going to see. Like, imagine if the Maximum Firepower documentary for Aliens had a HD remaster on Disney Plus and a cinematic release at the same time for some reason, and that is what you have here. Much respect to Michael Lindsay Hogg. As
clearly
has been detailed here earlier. He did have a bad rap, but also I don't accept excuses here in this organization. We do not tolerate failure here, Mr. Bond. And then that's when Michael and Lindsay Hogg slides back into the pit full of sharks with laser beams on their head. There was a bit Ethan did earlier that's definitely going to get cut, but to one up him here, how in like medical research that there were horrible things done in the past, but it's like no, but because of that we got the cure for yada yada yada. This is like the horrible pre-World War II experiments on like people in Tuskegee that then became Get Back and the medical establishment that we
to provide
today.
some context.
A lot of people holding their foreheads on the Zoom right now. A lot of people holding their foreheads.
To elaborate on Sam Wiles' points.
Erika's covering her mouth. She laughed. I'm absolved. It's fine.
For the audience out there, I compared what Sam's referring to.
You're fine. You're fine.
Okay,
let them guess. It's even funnier if they just.
And we cut.
Yeah. I'm ready to do my Elvis Costello impression.
Yeah,
if you want.
We'll release the 8-hour documentary later.
Nice.
I can do my Elvis Costello impression.
We'll give you that. Go ahead.
Okay. All of the songs, I love Elvis Costello. All of them. I did good and it valid is true. I did good
pretty good. It's pretty good.
That's my Elvis Costello impression.
It's pretty great. Yeah, I'll give it to you. Hey, everybody. We just
you didn't ask what I thought.
Oh, Ethan?
Yeah. Ethan and Jonathan get some last hacks.
I apologize. I thought we went around the horn. We did not. Ethan, final.
It's good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. It had the Beatles in it. It had the Beatles in it, and I like the Beatles.
Ethan, are you more likely to watch this again or put on Now and Then?
Good one.
Question.
No comment.
Well, answer the question.
Answer.
can I just put on Stop Making Sense?
No. Take off your big suit.
You're in a big David Byrne phase right now.
Hey, how did I get here?
This is like my beautiful house.
Psychedelic RGB.
What sort of lighting do you have going on in your space?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
about 20 minutes ago, I thought it'd be really funny if I put on like a flashing RGB light that the audience won't see.
Yeah.
But I was hoping it would bring joy to my panelists.
I went to the Blotto text immediately, and if we ever hear a ding, 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 it was like, what's up with Ethan's lighting?
Ethan,
did you like?
Have you guys? What is the John Lennon thing just came out? It's John Lennon. It's like a light. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? It's some sort of therapy.
Oh yeah, Illuminate. Yeah,
Illuminate app. Yeah, and they did.
It's cool, man. I did.
They flashed light in your face to what Lennon song is it? Why can't I remember?
It's all these kind of.
Oh, is that the Mind Games thing?
Yeah,
it's Mind Games. Yeah, it's like this
kind of esoteric remixes of Mind Games and the melody from Mind Games. And the premise of the app is you put the phone really close to your eyes, and it flashes the strobe in different patterns, which create different images in your, I guess, so to speak, mind's eye. It's really interesting, and they're meant to cause different sensations of calm, different meditative kind of states. And I've done it with a non-Mind Games setting that they have, and one of the Mind Games ones. It's really neat. Like, I'd say try it. It's cool.
Isn't that what they did to Alex in A Clockwork Orange?
Well, except for the eyes.
I can't.
It's neat though. I recommend it if you're interested in meditation. It's something that's really interesting. So I enjoyed it. I would do it again.
But shockingly, I digress. Jonathan, last takes.
Yeah. I'm glad it's out. I'm very glad it's out. It's something that I think is part of the overall context and overall conversation. It needed to be out there with everything else. I hope it's part of an ongoing plan to put all the Beatles cinema collection in one central location. I enjoy it. I mean, is it my favorite thing that they've put out? No. But it doesn't have to be. It's something that's, another piece of the puzzle of this story that we all love enough to have podcasts for. So yeah, I'm glad it's out. I look forward to seeing how it ages and how it kind of finds its place in the conversation 60 years later, or whatever it is, however many years.
I love it. Everyone feel good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel great. And I think it's probably time to wrap up. My clock says we're an hour and 49 minutes into this this recording session. So we're gonna hit the stop button in a minute, and we're gonna go around the horn. We're gonna say our podcast. We're gonna say where you can find us and anything else you want to say. This is Tommy. We are Blotto Beatles. You can hit us up on all those socials at Blotto Beatles. That's where you can find us ranking every Beatles song from best to worst. We're also going to sing those karaoke songs. If I'm going to say one more thing tonight, here's what I'm going to say. Rest in peace, Steve Albini.
Oh, yeah.
Really famed producer. We just found out died 2 days ago. Had a hand in so much stuff I love. I'm kind of shocked and blown away that this guy's gone at 61 years old. And I don't know what else to say. Jonathan, talk to us about ranking the Beatles.
Yes, if you want to find more people ranking every single Beatles song, you can do it over at rankingthebeatles.com or anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Ranking the Beatles, and on Twitter at Ranking Beatles, and join in the conversation. It's a whole lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Ethan Alexanian, where can people find you?
Canada.
Did it for me. I God. It has Fans on the Run. You can find it where you get podcasts. You can find it on social media where there's social media. I'm not, contrary to popular belief, I'm not on Truth Social.
All right. Sorry, Rogan fans.
Peace and love. One love. Bob Marley.
All right. Sam Wiles, where can people find that Paul or Nothing podcast?
It's now 5:00 p.m. in the UK, and Sam has been with us for approximately 14 hours.
We've been doing this for 47 hours.
Time zones correctly.
He's grown a beard in the time he's been on here. And shaved it into a goatee.
He looks like evil Mirror Universe Sam with that goatee.
Like Ben Affleck and Chasing Amy. No, I feel like I look like Tony Stink.
It's like that scene.
You know what?
It's like that scene in Star Trek.
Everyone, he still looks super handsome.
It's like that scene in Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Podcasting is.
Look at this guy. Sam, talk to us about Paul or Nothing.
Paul or Nothing is the best place to get all of your Paul all of the time, especially if you like hosts more attractive than the two legs guys. That's all I'm saying.
And where can they find you on the social? Is that
true?
What about on the socials? Because it's not at Paul or Nothing. It's at
Paul McCartney Pod, at Paul McCartney Podcast. Type in also Mac It in Your Attic on YouTube as well for my sister show. There are new episodes coming out as well.
Why do I have to do this work for you? Like, why do I have to prime the pump for you? Like, you should be.
And are you willing, Sam, to
leave me alone?
Yes.
Sam, are you willing to tell the people tonight that you're coming to Beatles Fest New York 2025? Because that's where people want to see you.
I'm definitely coming to Beatles Fest Liverpool 2024. No, I will promise this. Far.
Liverpool.
We're gonna move on here.
What?
We're gonna move on, and it's we're talking to one of our favorites, maybe our absolute favorite. It's Erika White from BC the Beatles. Where can people find you, Erika?
Well, you can find us everywhere now. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. I'm trying to do the TikTok, but it's so much work. But we are at BC the Beatles everywhere. Catch our interview with Michael Lindsay Hogg. And, you know, Sam, I want a little Mecca in my attic. That's a great name. That's all I can say about that.
It was stolen. It was stolen from A Word in Your Attic, from a Word in Your Ear podcast. Sorry, everyone.
Right.
It was stolen. No,
the best ideas are stolen.
Great steal. It's a great steal.
Hey, everybody. Here's what we're going to say. We're going to say, go watch that Let It Be movie on Disney, the Plus, right? Disney Plus. Go watch that. If you have the time and you like Let It Be, go watch Get Back, the 8-hour version, the 8-hour journey that takes you through the Beatles kind of second to last era, and go listen to the Beatles, because we all love the Beatles. We talk about this stuff pretty much every week, every other week. You can find us. We have 3 words for you as we leave. Those 3 words are peace.
Peace.
Thanks again to the Blottos for organizing this roundtable and keeping the Let It Be fires burning. And if you enjoyed this week's discussion, please check out our friends at Blotto Beatles, Ranking the Beatles, Fans on the Run, and Paul or Nothing. And thanks again for listening to BC the Beatles. As always, subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you're listening right now, and give us a rating and review so other Beatlemaniacs can find us.
And follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter /X, and TikTok. We'll be posting photos and more from this episode and beyond. Remember, you can always email us at bcthebeatles@gmail.com. And we will see you next time. Bye.